Hey everybody. All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the first 2 weeks are now in. So I'm Wes, in case you haven't met me yet or seen any of my videos. So let's just talk about the first 2 weeks. First week discussion board was talking and getting to know each other a little bit, which was great. It also gives me an idea of what people are doing here and why you're taking the course. So thank you very much for that. Then week 2, we had quiz, so we're off to a good start. And so let me tell you a little bit about the course. So first of all, the course is not easy in the sense that it is a fair amount of work. It is not hard in the sense that if you do the work and you do it every week, you can get an amazing mark in the class, okay? So it's effort in, grade out type concept course. If you're looking to try to cram things at the end, this is the wrong course for you. This is one where you have to put the work in each week, okay? And for example, everyone started recording their budget since the course started. So you have to track your daily expenses, whether it's by receipts or you just physically enter them constantly, whichever method's fine, okay? But you do need to track it properly. If not, you won't get great marks. And the budgeting assignment alone is worth 25%. So you need to do that part right, okay? Having said that, you put the work in, you can get an amazing mark in this class. It isn't designed to punish people. It's meant to reward people who put the effort, okay? And I got some notes here. That's why I'm looking down. So one of the things I do want to make sure everyone considers is that your relationship with money, okay? And what I mean by that is most people are not super self-aware of what their true strengths and weaknesses are. Okay, it took a lot of years for me to really figure out my true strengths and weaknesses. Everyone's got their resume style answer ones, but you need to figure out how it works for you as a person. What is it that drives you, or what is it that you're really good at or not? And that's partly why I asked the question, what makes you awesome type idea in week 1. And got a lot of amazing answers, and I really appreciate that. But it's also really hard for a lot of people to recognize their true faults. And what I mean by that is not like, the resume style of I work too hard. That's not a fault, okay? That's not a negative. But like maybe, for example, I'll pick myself, I have an addictive personality. So I have to be super careful with certain things because if not, I can put myself in a difficult situation. So I have to be super cautious of that and constantly aware of it because it's a true weakness of mine where I can let that override things it shouldn't override. So just picking an example. And like I said, it takes a lot for people to be truly self-aware, so spending some time that way would be good. And part of the reason I care so much about your self-awareness is that it's really hard to know your relationship with money without being self-aware. Unfortunately, most people grew up with parents that either didn't talk about money, didn't really educate people like their kids on money, or they hid it or treated it as a secret, or like for example, I grew up very differently than most kids in my age where I was fully aware of what my dad made. Not because he was trying to show off, even though he did very well. It was to explain how it works. But the deal for me was if I ever shared it with my friends or used it as a weapon of any form, I'd never be shared with again. And so I was given a great responsibility and a great opportunity to learn, because as soon as you can talk about these things, then you can talk about the expenses and how things work, and it opens a door. So I was very lucky compared to most people, whether it be in my time or if you're younger. And I think it's important people recognize the opportunities that exist to them. On the other hand, if you grew up, for example, a little bit more like my spouse, money was a bit more of a hush-hush thing. You didn't talk about it. And the first time I really noticed it was when I tried to have a financial conversation with my wife, well, at the time, fiance, and she started to cry. And I was like, we weren't arguing, but money had been built into her to such a degree that it was either bad or something you don't talk about, that it was almost like I was triggering a fear. So my point is that there's lots of different representations of how people view money. I think it's really important you understand what yours is, because otherwise it's really hard to understand your weakness of where money can be dangerous for you. So for example, I usually recommend credit cards to people, but only to people that are good, financially responsible, who can pay the credit card off in full every month. Otherwise, you're way better to go on a cash or a debit style diet where you have no credit cards, and then you can't go past your limit because it creates a hard limit for you. Credit cards can be a great tool, but only if used wisely. So, for example, those are the types of things we want to talk about. The other thing I really want to let you know is that this is a course deals with numbers, but it's not math, okay? And a lot of people say they like math and stuff like that, but actually most people really like numbers. So the Excel spreadsheet for the budget will do the math for you. You have to record the numbers, and the key is understanding the value in the numbers, okay? So this is, you can be horrible at math and still do well in this course and still get a good knowledge, because understanding numbers and math are two different things, okay? So this is not an accounting course, it's not a math course, it's a numbers course, okay? And there is a big difference there. So I hope that makes sense. So got covered the first 2 weeks, your relationship with money, numbers not math, budget assignment. Make sure you're tracking everything. The earlier you do it, the more consistently you do it, the better. The more work you put in, the more valuable it will be. Okay, so keep in mind, it's the small stuff that usually kills people on their finances. So for example, you go to Walmart, that final path you go through, that's intentional, okay? Those are what we call impulse buys. You buy it not because you actually need it, but you see it and you're like, ooh, I want it, or I could use it. And they do that on purpose. And there's a reason there's a price range on them. There's a reason they're the items they choose to put there. It's not random, it's very intentional. And then the other thing, for example, coffee goer, okay? So for me, let's say I get a large Tim Hortons coffee. Let's just make numbers simple, say that's $2, okay? Nothing, it's a toonie, right? Okay, but when you start factoring that across 5 days a week, maybe 1 or 2 a day, all right, for 50 weeks, all right, let's factor you go on vacation, let's factor you don't buy coffee on the weekend, which I think is crazy. You're still, if you're looking at, you could be spending $500, $600 just on your coffee, all right, in a year. It doesn't sound, but when you start thinking about, $500, $600, there's a PS5, there's money you could put towards your TFSA. It's all this type of stuff. And I'm not saying you cut it out, but the problem is you need to be aware, and that's why we're tracking for the budget, is that these small things are the ones that usually catch you, okay? Because you'll spend more than you think you do because you don't remember spending it. You remember buying your car. You should do an analysis on that. But you won't forget that one. But you will forget your coffee or your purchase of a pack of gum, stuff like that. Anyway, just want to get you started, really want to get you out on the right path. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And also, please try to figure out what your relationship with money is for you, okay? I've got a good relationship. I don't view it as a bad thing. I view it as a tool, so I don't view it as an ultra success tool in the sense that I wouldn't define myself by my money. There are people that do that where it's a little too extreme on that side too, but I do view money as a valuable tool, and the more you have of it, the more successful you can make decisions, or the easier you can make your life at times. Example for me, we were having troubles having kids, and so it cost us, let's say, $40,000, $50,000 to have children. That only works if you have $40,000 or $50,000 saved up that you can commit to that if it means a lot to you. So money is an important tool, and one that you need to save for. So I'll keep doing these little tidbits as we go along. Hope everyone's enjoying the course so far. If you have questions, reach out, and everyone have a great day. Thanks.